Survival is not just about staying alive. It's about finding hope, healing, and strength. This is The Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore. Before we begin, this episode may contain discussions of trauma, abuse, or other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. We don't recommend listening to this show with young children present, and we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Today on The Survivor's Voice,
especially not our family. We had no history of cancer. None of our loved ones had cancer. And then I think it was 10 days later that he was diagnosed. That was the only easy part because the preparation for that was so severe that they literally take you to the brink of death. I started taking note of all the little things, starting with the prophecy.
We're here today with Shelley, and we're looking forward to hearing all about her journey. Why don't you just kind of let us know, like, who you are today? What do you do? Let's start with where you're at today, and then we'll go back from the beginning and get back to here.
Hi, my name is Shelley Harper, and I'm a mom. I'm a wife. Been married for 33 years, have 4 beautiful grown children. Grandma to 3 little cute grandbabies. We have several family businesses that I'm a part of. Strangely enough, now I'm actually an author. I'm working on my 2nd book.
That is awesome.
I have my 3rd one kind of starting out.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm just enjoying grandma life and mom life and kind of semi-retired life.
Okay, that's fantastic. So let's get into your story. Tell me, let's start from the beginning.
Oh, the beginning. Okay, so we'll start with the beginning of this particular journey of where 12 years ago, my husband was 45 years old, super healthy, former Marine, never got sick, never complained, didn't believe in doctors, rub some dirt on it kind of guy. He came down with a headache one day, and about 5 days later, he was diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh my gosh. Did you take him to the hospital, the doctor? How did they discover that?
Yeah, for the first few days, he just stayed in the bedroom, sucked down NyQuil. Kind of we left him alone. That's how he is when he gets sick. Just kind of leave him alone and he'll get through it kind of thing. When I came home from work one day, and I thought it was just the flu, to be honest.
Yeah.
When I came home from work one day, my youngest son was there and he said, "Mom, Dad doesn't want you to know this, but he's throwing up blood." So I immediately went into the bathroom and he was currently throwing up blood. And that's when he looked at me and said, I think you need to take me in. So for him to admit that he needed to go in, I was kind of shocked. But still, it didn't really register with me because I thought, oh yeah, he's probably got, he needs antibiotics. He's probably got a dry nose or whatever.
Of course. Well, nobody goes cancer.
Right. Especially not our family. We had no history of cancer. None of our loved ones had cancer. It was just, you hear about it.
Yeah.
But you
don't think it's ever going to happen to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So we went to urgent care, the one on Prairie in 95 that I pass every day, and I still think about it.
Oh my gosh.
We had an amazing doctor, and they basically just kept telling me, we think the machine is broken. We took some blood, and we think maybe the results are skewed. We've never had such a high reading, that kind of thing. So that's when we were like, okay, well, something's up. So they basically sent us to the ER to confirm or deny what they had found.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting because when you have something really wrong with you, the ER people, they just get you right in. Like, we didn't wait. There was no waiting.
Yeah.
We were whisked into a room.
It makes you nervous a little bit. Like,
a little bit.
Why are they treating me special?
Why do they care now?
Why do they care now?
Why am I not waiting in the waiting room for 6 hours?
No kidding.
So they also got a very high reading on his white blood cells. And that's when they started throwing around the leukemia word. But they said, don't worry, because we think it's the good kind.
I didn't know there was.
There is no good kind.
There is no good kind.
But there is, basically, they have chronic and they have acute. Chronic, I know several people now that I've met with chronic leukemia. And so they kind of treat it, but it's not like, it's not really here and now, you're going to die if you don't treat. You know what I mean? It's
like
kind of like a condition that you live with.
Okay.
So at that point, I was telling my husband, oh, look, it's going to be fine. We probably just need to give you vitamins. Maybe you take some medicine. This is going to be okay. Let's not freak out. Meanwhile, all my kids are at home. I had 4 kids, 3 kids at home, and 1 was at Boise State, wondering what was going on.
Yeah.
They knew their dad was sick, but they really had no clue. And like we had no clue. So my mind is, I'm sitting there in this hospital. We're waiting. And my kids are at home and I'm wondering if they're having dinner or wondering if they're doing their homework. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So like, just that's the beginning of the torn feeling that I had for a few years. Basically, they said, go home. You need to call the cancer center in the morning, first thing, and head right over. We think it's the good kind, but they'll do some more tests, that kind of thing. They said, make sure you drive carefully. You don't do anything crazy because his platelets are really low and he could bleed. His head could bleed. So
But it's the good kind.
But we might have the good kind. So that's something to hang on to, right? To back it up just a little bit, it was about 2 weeks earlier that we got invited to a church, local church, for what they called a prophecy conference. And we had never gone to this church. My husband especially was not the kind of person that would be interested in a prophecy conference. He was
sounds
raised,
like my husband.
Yeah, he was raised Lutheran. We were supposed to go to the Seahawks playoffs thing. He was all about that.
Yeah.
But he agreed to go. And so we went and he really enjoyed it. And so we went back the next morning. And at that service, he was actually prophesied over. And it was really interesting because it sounded very hopeful. It sounded very like, yay, this is a good thing. So God's doing something in our lives.
What was it?
It was a long prophecy. It was 6 minutes long.
Can you kind of paraphrase it a little bit?
So my husband had been going kind of through a midlife crisis, I guess. We had gone through a lot of financial struggles, and he's very type A, so he's all about ambition and entrepreneurship and all of that. And he had kind of gotten to the point where he was frustrated with life. Like, is this it? Like, I just work and then lose things and work and this and that. He really just felt like he had a bigger purpose on this earth than just making money, going to work. So he had been praying, for God to show him what his purpose was, unbeknownst to me. I was praying also, please, Lord, like, get a hold of this man. Like, whatever he's going through, this is not fun.
Yeah.
So help him through this. The next morning, we went back to this prophecy conference where he was prophesied over. And this man who we'd never seen in our lives sat there and told my husband all the things that he had been feeling. And my husband, this Marine, was bawling his eyes out, sitting there in this pew. 2 of our kids were with us, so we just watched him cry his eyes out, basically, while this man was saying things like, you've tried and failed. Entrepreneurship is for you. Basically, the enemy's after your calling, so don't give in. Don't take anything personally that's happening to you. Like, be resilient. The best is yet to come. And then he said things like, this part of your life, you're supposed to make memories. Memories are the most important thing to your family. And he would say memories over and over and over again, which was super strange to us. We had no idea what he was talking about.
Oh my God.
We were just like, okay, yay, God loves you. He sees you. He gave you a special message. Yay, life's great. Let's get on with it. And then I think it was 10 days later that he was diagnosed. So needless to say, we were kind of like, I think we knew God was with him. I personally was like, we have this prophecy. You've been told your best days are ahead of you, and we are not going to let go of that.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've been diagnosed with leukemia, but this is all going to be okay. That's the sense that my kids and I had.
Yeah.
So to follow up, we went to the hospital the cancer center the next morning where we spent hours and hours and hours waiting for all the test results. They also said to him, we think it's the good kind. Don't be alarmed. This is the good kind. And then when the tests came back, they came back in and said, well, it's not the good kind. And so my husband's like, so it's the bad kind? Yes, it's the bad kind. So
oh my God.
He had never wanted to do chemo. He'd known of people who had cancer, but never our family. And he just basically said, well, what do I have? What kind of time do I have here if I choose not to do chemo? And the doctor looked right at him and he said, you'll be dead in 2 weeks. 1 minute you're fine. The next minute you're going to be dead in 2 weeks.
Huh.
And it's a slap across the face.
Your brain can't even catch up.
You can't even compute that.
No.
It was go straight to Sacred Heart. You have a doctor waiting for you. Go to the ER. They'll whisk you in. They'll put you in. You're starting chemo tomorrow. And off we went down this cancer journey.
Wow.
that we never asked for.
Yeah.
It was heavy and it was fast. And I just immediately, of course, texted my family, texted his brothers. This is what we're dealing with. Then it was all the people who had all the questions and trying to tell our kids what was going on. And
how did your kids handle that?
In different ways. They were different ages. So 12, 16, 18, and 19, or sorry, 12, 16, 17, and 19. So they all handled it differently. My 19-year-old, once we were in the hospital, I think it was by the end of that day that he showed up at the door of the hospital room. I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, I quit school. I'm here." So that's how he handled it. He quit school. He put his life on hold to be with us. My 16-year-old, it was really rough on him. And he kind of handled it by just going internal. My 12-year-old and my daughter, who was 17, they cried a lot. I mean, they were very vocal about it.
Yeah.
They were just crying a lot. Every time I would come home from the hospital, they were crying, "Mom, is Dad going to die?" So yeah, that's kind of how they handled it. Meanwhile, they're getting good grades. They're going to driver's ed. They're getting asked out to homecoming. They're wanting to go school shopping.
Yeah.
Normal life.
Because
It's
life
their life
still is still continuing on.
Mm-hmm.
How did you handle it?
I went into game face mode. Women are super strong.
Yeah.
And I went into do whatever you have to do.
Survival mode.
Survival mode for sure. It was, I think, 2 weeks in the hospital the first time.
And that's chemo every day?
Yeah, I think his chemo, it was supposed to last about a week at a time. So he would be admitted every week, every time he would do it. And then he would get a couple weeks out. And then you come back and then you would get a couple weeks out.
Okay, so leukemia, let's talk about that. So some people might not understand what type of cancer that is. Where is it in your body?
Yeah, it's weird. It's in your blood. It's a blood cancer. So your bone marrow freaks out because there's cancer in your bone marrow. So now you don't make blood. Your blood is just totally skewed. The treatment is to kill your blood, to kill all your blood cells, your stem cells, and then they give you more blood of someone else so that you can survive until you get to this point where you're in some kind of a remission. The main treatment is a bone marrow transplant.
So then the chemo is throughout the whole body.
Yeah, so it's intravenously.
Okay.
So I think we figured out that all in all, he was in the hospital, I think, for about 6 months total.
Wow.
In and out, in and out, in and out.
What was he like when he was home?
He was a zombie. He was a shell of a human. He was in bed all the time. He tried to be, helpful. He tried to participate. He tried to parent. He tried to do all the things. But, he was exhausted. He was throwing up constantly. And then he was doing pretty well. And then something went wrong and the leukemia went to his brain. So leukemia, I think in men, it tends to go to your brain and your testicles if it spreads. So for him, it went to his brain. And that's when things really, really went downhill for all of us. Because then it was, headaches, really bad headaches. It was neurological symptoms. That was a bad turn of events. At that point, they really turned the heat up in his treatment. So then on top of the intravenous chemo, he was also getting what they call intrathecal chemo, which was directly into his brain. So they implanted a device in his head, which he still has a lump. He walks around with a lump on his head. That is a port. It's a plastic, some sort of plastic thing that they stick tubes down into your brain. And so when he would go in for chemo there, sometimes it was at the hospital, sometimes it was just at the cancer clinic in Spokane. They literally get a needle and they put chemo into your brain. And my husband said it sounded like pouring paint into a paint can. Like it was just this echoey type of weird sensation. And then within minutes, he was throwing up so violently and for so long. It was just horrific. I don't know how anyone could go through that. I don't know how anyone could go through that. And this was I think they did this 16 times or something. So that's when it started to get pretty darn rough. In the middle of all of that, we took a trip to Seattle.
All of you, even him?
My kids came with too.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in this together. That's just kind of how we are. We're all in. Everyone's in. Even if we don't want to be, we're there. So we took a trip to Seattle to go over his plan. When we first got diagnosed, it was January, February.
How many years ago?
12. And the doctor said, you'll probably get your transplant around October. So it would be 9 or 10 months of chemo and then your transplant. At this point, the cancer in the brain really sped everything up. It was okay, now we need to hurry. We need to somehow get you back into remission if we can, and then get you to Seattle quick. And so at this point, they were trying to find the match and all that. So we went to Seattle where they did a million tests on him, like heart test, lung test, brain test, regular test, blood test. They tested his brothers to see if they were a match. And siblings are only a match about 25% of the time.
Wow.
They were not a match. So then they go into this whole search on the web in this organization that bethematch.org, and they found matches. So that was that process. But I just remember going to this appointment, and we're talking to the surgeon or the doctor, and Chris was just throwing up the whole time, just in severe head pain before we really knew it was cancer in his brain. This was the beginning of it.
Okay.
And then driving home, and our kids were in the car, and I just remember he couldn't handle gum chewing. He couldn't handle if you would sigh. He couldn't
Wow.
just the sound and the pressure in his head. He was just, it was the longest, however many hours of my
I
life,
bet.
just getting him home. But at that point, things got pretty dark. You know, we were trying to have a normal life still, going to baseball games, going to basketball games, you know, the things you do with your kids. And God bless him, he would still come.
Was he walking? Was he in a wheelchair?
He was walking.
Okay.
Yeah, he was walking. I mean, he would be in a wheelchair sometimes at the hospital when he was getting treatment and stuff.
Yeah.
But when he was out, he would rally.
My gosh.
He would rally, and he would go to Yakima, to a baseball tournament. He would just throw up in the parking lot. I mean, he was just, we'd go there and have to stop for a quick blood transfusion at some hospital somewhere. But he would just rally. He would make it happen.
What a man.
Yeah, definitely learned a lot about suffering and the will.
Mm.
And every time you would ask him, how are you doing? Or any kind of picture, it's thumbs up. I mean, he is the thumbs up guy.
So what does it mean to get a bone marrow transplant? I can't even wrap my brain around that.
Well, I thought it would just be like some kind of little procedure. You know, you just think of bone marrow transplant. It sounds like a liver transplant or like and I'm not saying that's easy. I don't have a clue.
Right.
But in my head, it didn't sound very bad, you know, because it's just blood. So the procedure is we had to go to Seattle. You have to be in remission. And then they kill off all your blood. So you get radiation and chemo, severe, it's like stronger than you've had before.
Oh my
so
God.
that you have no blood cells left. And I kind of thought they were kidding, you know, like, well, not no blood cells. No, it's zero.
Wow.
There are no blood cells in your body. You are basically embalmed. I mean, that's how I look at it. And then they give you these stem cells from your donor, which in his case was someone out of Europe, a 24-year-old male from Europe. It's like a bag of blood. It just looks like another blood transfusion.
Really?
And they put it in you, and then good luck. Let's hope
intravenously?
you rally. Mm-hmm.
So is he under anesthesia for?
No, it was literally the most mellow experience.
What?
Like we're just sitting there, and they gave him some Benadryl, which they do for blood transfusions, because so your body kind of doesn't react to it. They do all this matching and all this stuff first, and then they just put it in you, and that's it. And you're like, that's it. I mean, that was the only easy part, because the preparation for that was so severe that they literally take you to the brink of death. And I know all chemo is terrible and it makes you feel terrible. But I mean, they took him to the brink of death, put the blood cells in him, and then we wait and see what happens. So
how long was the wait?
10 days. They would check his blood every day, and there was nothing. There was no sign of any
nothing
duplication
positive
or anything like that.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
I think it was the 10th day they found a blood cell. So it was like, okay.
Oh my
And so
God.
then the next day, literally it doubles. So then there's 2, and then there's 4, and then there's 8, and then there's 16. And then over time, your body's got blood, and it's making its own blood from this person, whoever he is, from Europe. So now my husband
that just blows
he
my
has
mind.
type O blood, but he was type A before, because he makes someone else's blood.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's the process. And like I said, it was supposed to happen, they were thinking around October, but because he had all of the setbacks with his brain, we need to fix this man quick and get him over there and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Early on, I remember telling his oncologist, who we grew to love and still love to this day.
Oh, I'm sure you probably built a relationship with
Oh, yeah.
him.
That man, I mean, if I was having more children, my kids would be named after him. But I remember thinking, well, they told us when he gets his bone marrow transplant, they get a new birthday. It's like a thing, because it's really true. Like, this is your new birthday. It's not real, but it is real. And I just remember thinking, okay, so you're thinking October. My birthday's in August. Wouldn't that be so cool? Haha, wouldn't it be cool, honey, if you got it on my birthday? And the oncologist said, oh yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, no, it's going to be like October. So as we're getting closer, and as we had all these setbacks in his brain and all of this, it's like July, and they're sending us to Seattle. We're in Seattle, and they're saying, okay, it's go time. We're giving him this transplant. Everything checks out. We've got the match, yada, yada, yada. So at the end of, when it's all said and done, they're saying, okay, I think it's going to be August 22nd when he gets his transplant. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I was telling his nurse, Rhonda, at UW, and I was like, my birthday's August 23rd. I was like dreaming secretly, like, wouldn't it be so cool? And she's like, yeah, that's not how this works. I mean, they're going to wherever, Germany, they're whatever, they're getting this product. It's going in him the second it comes in. It's not how this works. But yeah, that's cute. And it was really close. We were down in the basement of the hospital getting radiation, and the phone rings at the front desk, and they said, is there a Shelley Harper in the room? And I'm like, who would call me here? No one even knows we're getting radiation right now. So I pick up the phone. It was Rhonda, the nurse. She said, I have to tell you something amazing. She said, there was some kind of delay, and he's getting his transplant on August 23rd, which is my birthday. I mean, there were so many stories like that through our process that are just, I'm sorry, they are just way too they're not coincident. And I started taking note of all the little things, starting with the prophecy that God did, how he showed up for us during this journey. And that's why I wrote the book, because there's too much goodness. There's too many amazing things, that stars that had to align for things to happen and to go well.
How long was the process from start to finish?
I don't know if it's ever really over. So, I mean, last year was his 10-year mark, and we finally stopped seeing the oncologist.
Oh my goodness.
So that gives you an idea.
Wow.
Of how it's not ever really over.
Yeah.
We do feel kind of now like it's behind him, but you still have things that he deals with because he had cancer.
Okay.
So it's just there forever. It's part of your life.
Like what?
Well, his body makes no testosterone because they had to do radiation on his testicles. So that's over. He makes no testosterone, which is so important. You have no memory. You have no energy. God. You have no nothing without your hormones, right? He's diabetic now, thanks to all the prednisone they had him on for months and months and months and months that kept him alive. He's got memory issues from the brain surgery and the brain, who knows what, radiation to his head, chemotherapy in his brain. He's tired. He's more tired than normal, but he's still, he's amazing. Like, he just did his first triathlon. He runs circles around everyone I know. He does it tired, but he does it.
How old is he?
He'll be 58 in a couple weeks.
So where are your kids at now with all of this?
They're really funny about it. My oldest is 32, and then I have a 29-year-old daughter, a 27-year-old son, and a 23-year-old son. I think my youngest, it really made him, like, he and my husband are attached at the hip. Like, he has my husband's back no matter what. And my daughter, I kind of feel the same way. I think she kind of likes him even better since cancer, because he's just more chill. He's more in the moment. He's more present. He's funnier. He's, happier. I think it really affected my other two boys a lot. And I think in some ways all my kids just kind of want to pretend like it didn't happen. Like, they kind of don't want to ever read my story. They don't want to hear about when I'm talking about it, because they just kind of want it to be a thing of the past. I think with my oldest, I think it affected him a lot, because he did really just put his life on hold.
Did he go back to school?
He never did, because you asked me how long this took. It was a good 4 years before my husband was really participating in life and not just sleeping all day. So he kind of took over the role for my youngest of hunting partner and, all those things that normally maybe your dad would do.
Yes. And
I think he just sort of put his life on hold, and you know how life takes its turns, and there you are.
What's he doing now?
He actually works for us in our business.
Oh, awesome.
He's got many gigs. So he does that. He's a realtor. He's taking flying lessons. So he's doing some things for himself now. Yeah.
What does your husband say about this experience? I mean, we've talked about all the things, but like, where is he at with all of this?
He says he'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh my God.
He says it wasn't bad. He says
it wasn't bad?
He says, like, it was an honor for him to have a little suffering. I mean, he just really has a different outlook than the rest of us, which is probably why God chose him.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not bitter. He really I think he had so much peace when it happened. I think having the prophecy really helped, because I think he knew, like, God sees me,
Yeah.
I'm not in this world alone kind of thing. And then I think he just thought, I know he thought this, because he told me when he was diagnosed and we were in the hospital, he told me that first night we were in the hospital that this was the best day of his life. And I said, what? And he said, well, yeah, I either know that I'm going home to be with the Lord or he has big, big plans for me. Either way, I know he's got me.
Wow.
That's kind of how he looked at this whole thing, and still to this day. And now he just looks at it like, every single person that he meets, if he can put my book into their hand, if there's some way he can give them hope or some way he can give them, a little encouragement through what he's been through, it makes it so worth it for him.
And that's the whole point of you being on this podcast today, is so that you can give other people hope. You can use your story to encourage and strengthen. Yeah. Strengthen people with their story.
This definitely changes you, right? Like any trauma that you go through, any suffering, I think it either makes you bitter and you blame and you're sad, or you use what you've learned, you use what you can to help someone.
It's a choice.
Yeah. Because you are forever changed. Like, you're not the same person. Our neighbor just died from cancer this last week. And now that we've had cancer, we're just like the cancer people.
Yeah.
And so I never saw my life being that. So we always know about the people who have cancer. We always know, we're always praying for someone that has cancer. We're always trying to help someone that has cancer, and then they pass away. And you just can't turn your head anymore. You just can't look the other way. Like, you've been there. You know exactly how she's feeling. You know exactly how he's feeling, how their kids are feeling. And it just makes you want to do something.
So tell me about your book.
The book, like I said, it was kind of just little tidbits and notes that I had made. I kind of look at it as like, a yellow brick road, how God, he just kind of lined the steps for us and said, okay, now this, okay, now here, okay, now that. Trust me here. And it wasn't normal. Like, it wasn't how I used to live my normal life. I didn't get those little nuggets on a daily basis. So this was kind of the beginning of either I tuned in better or he started showing me things more. And they were noteworthy to me. They were really special and different.
Yes.
And it made me feel very seen and very held. And so I just decided, and everyone would ask me, well, what about that? Or what about this? And I was like, there's too many things to tell. So it's just going to have to go in a book. I started, kind of writing all of this down, kind of jogging, putting my notes together. I kind of had a little storyline. And then I put it on the shelf, and 7 years went by of burying myself in work and all of the things we had going on in our family and the kids graduating and getting married and all the things. And my mom kept asking me, how's your book coming? How's your book coming? And it was just sort of that little seed planted. And then during COVID, I knew it was time.
Yep.
I felt God prompting me to write the book. And I remember saying to him, I was home and I was doing laundry. And I remember saying to him, I will, but I have zero clue how to do this. I have no direction.
That's the
which
best
is
place
how
to
I
be.
spend most of my life,
Yeah,
completely clueless. He put a name in my heart to call. And I said, okay, I will. I will later. Well, later that same day, this person called me. And he was an editor. And he was a friend of a friend.
Oh my gosh.
And he told me what to do. He told me how to write my book, and he's my editor on both my books.
What's the name of it?
The Prophecy, Our Journey to Cancer, Hell, and Back. It really was hell, but now we're back. And you can find it on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to reading it.
Thank you.
I mean, even just this small window into the experience that you guys had. I want to dive in.
Oh, awesome. I hope you do.
I could just sit here and cry the rest of the day.
But it has a good ending.
It does. Thank God. And
so
I was
grateful.
nervous. I was nervous in the beginning because I thought, is he still alive?
I always forget that. He's alive and well.
I'm so glad
he is. I'm telling you, the man, it's the miracle was big at the time, but every day that goes by that he is so well is to me, it's a reminder every single day of the miracle God really did, because he has no business being here. He has zero business being here. And we are so grateful.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap this up? Anything? What would you tell people that
I would
listening?
say bethematch.org, get on the list. That's my plea to you. Get on the list. See if you're a match. Because there are people out there right now, mommies and daddies, and they don't have a match. Because maybe they have an ethnicity. My husband was Norwegian, so it worked out for him. But I'm half Mexican. We have different background.
Yeah.
And we need people to get on that list. So bethematch.org, sign up, see if you're a match. It's super easy. They just swab your cheek. You swab your own cheek and you send it in.
Okay.
And the process is not what it used to be. It's very simple. It's literally like a blood transfusion.
Okay. So you basically donate blood and you give it to somebody.
Yeah. And you can save a life.
Well, those that are listening, I mean, that's easy.
That's an easy thing to do.
That's an easy way to save a life.
That you could change a family.
Well, thank you so much, Shelley. Oh, my God.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Next week on The Survivor's Voice,
I don't really think I've survived yet. I think I'm still surviving. I ended up at a hospital one time for that because she had suffocated me and pulled me down the stairs by my hair. When I was being beat as a kid, I remember having thoughts like that. Like, there's got to be a reason. This is what I live.
Thank you for joining us on The Survivor's Voice. I'm Angie Sedore, reminding you that every survivor's story matters, including yours. If you or someone you know has a story to share, you can contact us at booking@thesurvivorsvoice.net. Your voice deserves to be heard. If you enjoy the survival stories we share, we would love it if you gave this channel a follow and a 5-star rating. No matter how dark the journey, the light of resilience shines brighter. Thank you for listening. If you know someone who would benefit from hearing this story of survival, please share this powerful testimony with them. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible listeners for your unwavering support, and to the survivor community for your courage and resilience. You are the heart of this podcast.